just want to ask you before we jump on here, would you be upset if I dropped a link to my YouTube channel in your chat or your chat at some point?
I already did
No,
it for you in the
that's fine.
description.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You got it. Hello, everybody. Road Warriors 627 here with another racing preview here on my channel. Today we're going to be looking at 3 stakes at Keeneland, the Bluegrass, the Jenny Wiley, and the Ashland Stakes at Keeneland, races 7, 8, and 9 on July 11th. And joining me today, as usual, Sammy Roseman. And we also have
I'm back.
You are back. You're always back. You're here every week. And we have a special guest tonight. We have Jack Sargent of the Racing Rundown podcast. Say hi, Jack.
Hey, it's good to be on. I appreciate Andrew for me stop by, and hopefully we'll get you some good picks tonight.
Yeah, we will try not to embarrass ourselves as we often do, particularly me and Sammy. Jack, you probably look at these races a lot more logically than we do, so we'll recommend his picks most of all. We already got Dennis, and Dennis Trusty says, "Hey, I've been drinking a little bit, but I'm here to watch and listen to chat." Well, that's fantastic. Thank you, Dennis. We always need that kind of support. Now, these races at Keeneland are pretty good. The one race that gave me trouble, of course, was the Bluegrass, because there's no standout. How is that not going to give you trouble? But the other two, I landed on some more solid opinions. Let's start with the 7th race. That is the Ashland. It's a grade 1 going a mile and a 16th around 2 turns. And who wants to start tonight? I'll give the option to either of you guys.
Sammy, if you want to go, you can go first.
I went with Venetian Harbor. She's gonna be on the lead, and I just think she's too fast. What do you guys think?
I'll go next. I actually did a preview. I know Andrew dropped a link. I landed on the same thing that Sammy did. The 2 Venetian Harbor. She's not the lone committed speed in this race, but she's the best of the 2 horses that have the potential to go to the front. And the other thing is Keeneland as a dirt track.
Speed.
Turf is a completely different story, but can tend to not be the best place for closers to come in. So that obviously leads to look to Venetian Harbor. But the biggest point that I would make in this race is the 6 Speech. You can dismiss her at your own risk. She is, she's only won 1 career race in her lifetime, but she's had, if I can remember correctly off the top of my head, her page isn't loading, but she has 4 seconds and a third,
yes.
And in three of those seconds were behind in the Santa Anita Oaks behind Swiss Skydiver, who I'm sure we'll get to when we talk about the Bluegrass. In the race 7 on Arkansas Derby Day at Oakmont, which she was beat by Gamine. The 7th race at Santa Anita, which was the Santa Isabel back in March, where she was beaten by Donna Veloce, who has not run since that race, but looked spectacular. And at that point, a lot of people were thinking that Donna Veloce would be one of the leaders in this three-year-old filly division. And then going to the race before that, on the 1st of February, it was an allowance claimer where she was beaten second by a horse Auberge, who was beaten in her start against Bast. If you remember her from Bob Baffert's barn. She was injured very early in this year, but Auberge was beaten a length and 3/4 in the stake that Bast won in January. So she's been beaten by horses that have shown tremendous ability. And then in her maiden race, which was on the grass, she was beaten by Aqua Seashore. What's the name of that horse again? I mix her up all the time. The horse that won the 2nd at Del Mar today.
Something like that. She's fast, that horse.
Yeah. The horse that won the 2nd race at Del Mar, she was beaten by her and Venetian Harbor. So Speech is definitely a horse that you can write her off as a horse that doesn't want to win, but do that at your own risk, because those 4 seconds are behind very high caliber horses. And then as much as I was a little bit concerned about the closers in this, I did throw Bonnie South in for 3rd, just because I do respect her for that win that she had in the Fairgrounds Oaks. So that would be the top 3 I would go with. But the bottom 2 in that super, you could go the other 4 horses, but the top 2 you got to go Venetian Harbor Speech.
Yeah, and I should also mention that Tonalist Shape is out of the race, by the way. Tonalist Shape is scratched and is going to Club American Oaks at Saratoga.
But that race, the race that Speech came out, that 5 furlong sprint race in November at Delmar, that might be one of the best sprint races on the turf for 2-year-olds I've ever seen. For 5 furlongs, that might be the best.
5 furlong turf sprints, they give me nightmares. Anyway, I completely agree with both of you said. It's just that I like to rain on the parade a little bit, so I had to try and find somebody to beat these 2 horses. And I went with Bonnie South, your third choice, Jack. Very simply, closed into a not so fast pace last time. Big break, but the works have been steady. They have time. Big break, but the works have been steady. They haven't been. They've been pretty flashy. I got that horse confused with somebody else. 2nd of 18, working out at Keeneland. We got a bullet on June 27th. 5th out of 39 before that. Consistent 5 furlong works. The speed is not as important as the consistency in the works, and I like that has been out there every Saturday. So this is my horse that I'm going to take a shot with in here. I went 3, 2, 6, 4 in here. I think the 1 is your real outsider in here. I don't see how that horse is going to be able to hit the board. But anybody else could fill out that superfecta. I don't know if you want to play a super in a 5-horse field. I did once at Saratoga, and of course I lost. That's just the way it is. But yeah, I always 2 horses that look like they're gonna be out there. One's the controlling speed is 2, and who else is gonna be up out there? I guess the 6.
Timeform has the 2. They have the 2, and then about 2 lengths back to the 6 and 5.
So the 2, so Timeform thinks the 2 is going to have a clear lead in here.
Yes. Here, I'll send you a picture.
I'd like to see how this race unfolds, because if they just let the 2 walk the dog, that's it. I'd like to see somebody else go after him.
Now, if I may interject here, just one thing that I did want to point out. The horse that I was talking about that won the 2nd race at Delmar, her name is Aqua Seaform Shame, so a little bit of a mix-up with her there, but that's a completely great point that Andrew brought up there. The fact that, and that's the reason why I liked Bonnie South underneath, is the fact that she did close into a it wasn't a fast, fairly slow pace in the Fairgrounds Oaks, and she won that. So even though Keeneland does tend to not favor closers, that's definitely a respectful pick to try to go against, and try to go against the 2 favorites. And I can't fault him for trying to go that route.
I went with Speed 2nd. I just might think these 2 fillies are way too better. I feel like if Speech got a little bit of, if she got away from the top competition like she's been running it, she would dominate.
Well, that's actually what Michael McCarthy tried to do with the Santa Anita Oaks, and we didn't know where Kenny was going to bring Swiss Skydiver, but they kind of got screwed with thinking that the Santa Anita Oaks would come up light, but then Swiss Skydiver showed up. So they'll find her a race at some point where she'll maybe, who knows, it could end up that she'll always get the curse of being the 2nd best behind a really good horse. But we haven't really talked too much about Venetian Harbor here. All the credit has to go to her. She ran a race that was, I don't want to say it was too good to lose, but she was great. She was great behind Swiss Skydiver in the fantasy.
Oh, at Oakland? Yeah, that was freaking insane. 109 and 3 for 3 quarters around 2 turns at Oakland. That's she runs that, it's over here.
And if you go back to her race in the Las Virgenes, that was another one where that was her first race where you really began to find out about her being a real big player in the graded stakes level. And so Venetian Harbor, you got to give all the credit to her. She, on pure class alone, she's the best horse in this race. So just wanted to go into a little bit on her, because we have kind of talked about the underneath horses, but the horse on top, the reason why this race is really hard to go against her in, and why our exactas, or at least mine and Sammy's, are very chalky, is because the horse that we both have on top, is very hard to beat.
Yeah, I guess if you're playing any of the long multi-race bets, if you want to save some money, definitely you could single the 2 in here. If you want a little bit more coverage, you do 2-6, and if you have a wacky idea like mine, you use the 2, the 6, and one other horse. I wouldn't go more than 3 deep in here. Personally, I think you'd be wasting your money. If you're gonna have an opinion for somebody else that can beat these 2, limit it to 1 horse, because there's a lot of other races in this sequence where you might want to spread.
Yeah.
Also, before we go, I have to mention, Dennis, you put your picks, you sent them to Sammy, and Sammy sent them to me. I just want to mention Dennis's picks. He's still in the chat here. He likes the 3 Bonnie South as well, because she's approved every race. Johnny V gets on for Cox, and Cox's B horse won the Indiana Oaks on Wednesday. 6 Speech and 2 Venetian Harbor for 2nd and 3rd. So he has 3-6-2 in here.
Does it concern you why Pratt is off this horse? What made him put Joel back on?
I wouldn't read too much into that with the change in the rider.
But
is
third,
Pratt here? Is he here?
Yeah, he is. For 3rd, he's riding. I know he's riding the 13 in the Bluegrass.
Pratt's riding for Belmont. I think the only time I remember Flavian Pratt riding for Belmont was Country House.
Yeah. But for 3rd, I have Bonnie South.
So we're all on the same 3 horses.
And for 4th, this horse I felt like was interesting if she could run back to her maiden race, the 4. Does she interest you guys at all? She can close. She can go to the lead.
I put her 4th. I put her 4th because she's better than the 1. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I did the exact same thing. I threw her in the end of my super.
I went 2-6-3-4.
It is worth mentioning over tonalist shape. I don't think the tonalist shape is the type of filly. Obviously that she scratched, it doesn't really matter. But I don't really think tonalist shape is the kind that can beat top level horses. She showed that in the Gulfstream Park Oaks. That was very concerning. But obviously they can't keep her down at Gulfstream forever, so they're gonna have to run her somewhere. But I didn't think this was the spot, and they probably rationalizing with themselves that they'll go somewhere else with her.
Yeah, I guess they're just hoping that the CCA Oaks comes up light.
It most likely is going to come up light because all the top fillies, with the exception of Gamine, are running this weekend, and Gamine is pointing to the test, so that makes perfect sense as to why they would assume that, and it most likely is going to come up light unless Donna Veloce comes in from the west, which I have no information on whether or not that actually happened. I haven't looked at her work schedule, so I'm just completely BSing on that. But that's the only reason I would think that race would not come up light, is if Donna Veloce ships in. But aside from that, that would be a good spot for her because she'll be able to avoid the top 4 or 5 horses.
Yeah,
so Gamine is going to the test, because that's where I thought she should go after the Acorn. I think
I'm not confirming that. I'm just from what everyone on social media has made it sound like, and that's where that's also the most logical step. For Gamine.
That's where I would run her.
The Acorn has had the tendency, not every single year. The exception to that would obviously be Abel Tasman, who was able to go the 1 1/8 distance. But a lot of times it can produce horses that run really well around one turn. You saw that with Rorana, who's going to be running in the Madison Keeneland also on this Saturday card. And I'm not saying that she would not be able to go to a 1 1/8. Obviously, whether or not they test her on the Kentucky Oaks Trail would be the determining factor for that. But the next logical step for her is the test.
I just want to interject here for a second and say that, Jack, somebody better freaking hire you, okay? You need to get hired by some kind of racetrack, because the way you sound better than 90% of the people on simulcast feeds across the country. So I don't know what you're pursuing in college, but you need to be employed, and I don't now, okay? Somebody should come and pick you up and give you $100,000 and say, come work for us. And I mean it. You sound a lot smarter than 90% of the people that I listen to. I just need to say that. You're professional, you make a lot of sense, and I'm very happy to have you here. And I said that just after one race. I could tell that, I don't know if you want to work in horse racing, but I think if you choose to, you're in good shape.
I don't want to cut him off, but I really do appreciate you for saying that. I don't know if the audio is still working on that, but just to answer it, I am pursuing this kind of field in college, so hopefully I'm applying to get a position at my school's radio station. So we have a really good relationship with the New York Racing Association. So if we're fortunate enough, we might be able to get down to some. We might be able to be at some of the Triple Crown races and more big events from Andrew right there. And if you're listening and you haven't subscribed me or you haven't heard of my channel, I would really appreciate it going over there to Racing Rundown and subscribing to it. Just one more note to interject here on the Donna Veloce thing. She will not be running the Coaching Club American Oaks. She just worked. Actually, she just worked today at Del Mar. So Donna Veloce will not be running in the Coaching Club American Oaks after just one work. So that was just me completely BSing something there. Tonalist Shape is probably going to be the horse to beat in that race next week. But I guess if we... Oh, who is going? Who is that?
That's Sam.
Okay. I mean, that makes it a little bit more interesting. But the Coaching Club American Oaks is probably going to come up really light. And that would be really unfortunate. That would be really unfortunate for the New York Racing Association to have their last graded stakes at Belmont. Did I screw that up again?
No.
I know there's the Milan.
No, the River Memories isn't graded.
Okay, so the last graded stakes at Belmont and the first grade one at Saratoga to both come up with under 7 horses. That would be really unfortunate for them. So would hope that doesn't happen, but if it does happen,
it's going to happen because it almost happens every year with that race. The CCA Oaks hardly ever has it. I don't think I've ever seen it have a field more than 8. I can't remember.
It's just running a really bad position. But, I don't really know if they have a way that they can correct that. They just kind of get screwed on that.
They'd have to play around with it.
Where are you going to put it?
I mean, I don't really think there's anywhere else you could put it.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I never really saw it as a problem. It's usually about 4 weeks after the Acorn. So it seems logical that horses that run in the Acorn would go to the CCA Oaks. And you'd have horses from the Midwest shipping in, horses that run in Kentucky and stuff like that. But just doesn't turn out that way a lot of the time. So I guess
does anyone... I was going to say...
We're just magic. We just love... This happens all the time. We just love to interrupt each other on this show. It never fails. Go ahead, Jack.
No, I was just going to say, does anyone else have anything else to say? Because I don't have anything else to say unless we want to keep beating the dead horse on this race.
I think it's 2-3-6. Move on.
Yep.
Okay, so the 8th race is the Jenny Wiley. This is 1 mile and a 16th, around 2 turns on the grass. And, of course, there's a horse in here. And, of course, she's trained by Chad Brown, who used to be my favorite trainer and is now my least favorite trainer. And her name is Rushing Fall. The question with Rushing Fall is she going to throw in a clunker? Because if she doesn't, who's going to beat her?
When I was looking at this race, I tried to beat Rushing Fall, but it's just, is Rushing Fall going to throw in a clunker? But she rarely does. She's thrown in 1 clunker in her 12-race career. And really, I'm just expecting a good Rushing Fall. She ran awesome off that break, and I think she's going to improve, and I think she's going to be real hard to beat.
I would caution you guys on saying if she loses this race, she's going to run a clunker. We've known from what Rushing Fall likes to do in the past that she likes to be very close to the lead. But she's not the only horse in this race that is a speed horse. You got to look to a horse that's probably going to be one of the big focal points in this race. The 6 Jolie Olympica, the Brazilian import for trainer Mandela. She's run 3 races. Her last race in the Monrovia, that was a 5 furlong sprint at Santa Anita. She actually beat Alexander, who won if you remember from the Belmont Stakes Cup, won the Jaipur.
Yes.
So
screwed my dad out of about $40. Yeah,
I had her that day.
Obviously like adds to the talent that Jolie Olympica has. But the problem with her is, and she would have been a really interesting horse in a race like this if she could get a easy lead like this. But this is a mile and a 16th, and that's I'm not going to say that she can't go the distance. She does have. It is worth mentioning she does have a win at a mile in Brazil, but a mile in Brazil is a very different race than a mile in the United States.
Yeah, you're gonna believe that? I wouldn't believe anything unless I watch the replays, which I haven't watched the replays.
But the thing with her is, you can't really, like they're saying, you don't really want to put too much value into her races from Brazil. But the most important point with her is that she is a burner and she'll be up on the lead, and Rushing Fall likes to do her running up there, and it's very likely that you could see those two go on the lead and run each other out. And that's why I went with Rushing Fall on my show, because Rushing Fall's one of, if not my favorite horses in training, and I always go with Rushing Fall. But this was the best. I thought that this was the best race to look for value underneath on the Keeneland Stakes card. This race in particular, more so than the Bluegrass, or even though the Bluegrass is a very good race for value, I thought that this was the best one. One thing that is also worth noting about this race, you're going to want to look at a grade 3 at Churchill Downs, and grade 3s at Churchill Downs don't really come into factor. And I'm actually stealing this point from my co-host on here, so I want to give him credit. This is not my opinion. This is what my co-host talked about in his video on the Jenny Wiley. The key point about this is that 4 horses are coming out of the Mint Julep at Churchill Downs: Secret Message, La Signari, Juliet Foxtrot, and blanking on the 4th horse in here, Alta. Thank you. So those 4 horses are coming out of that race, and if you remember the Mint Julep, that was a blanket finish all across the board. You can't really put too much stock in a horse's winning, but a horse like Beau Recall, who I identified as one going into the Justa game a couple weeks ago as one that would definitely run a lot better than that 9th place finish in the Mint Julep suggested, obviously, because she was only a couple lengths back of what was a blanket finish. And Juliet Foxtrot was even closer in that. And Juliet Foxtrot is definitely going to be one of the horses that, if you are someone who's very concerned about picking Rushing Fall, she's 8-1 on the morning line. If you can get anywhere near that kind of price on Juliet Foxtrot, you're going to want to hammer that. I mentioned that Keeneland Dirt can be sort of iffy with closers, not so with the Keeneland Turf. We saw that this year with we saw that actually today with War of Will. He was not necessarily closing from very far back, but he was not on the lead with the other horses, and he was able to rally and win that race. But you're going to want to look at her, because she's going to be one that's definitely going to be coming. And if she gets a really fast pace, like one that she could get at Jolie Olympica and at Rushing Fall, go at each other, you're definitely going to want to look at that. You could also, look at La Signari and Secret Message, the other 2 horses that were the 1-2 finishers in the Mint Julep, as potential ones that you're going to want to consider. But that race in particular is going to be very vital with looking at a lot of these horses, because most of the horses have come back from that race and have run really, really nice races since then. You can, if you're interested in finding out what the exact statistics are, my co-host went through that in his video, and all the horses that have come back to 1. But the most notable ones are, of course, or the most notable one is Beau Recall, who came back and ran 2nd behind Newspaper of Record in the Justa game. So, but right. that would be the big point for me, is that I would be concerned with Rushing Fall as how the pace would set up for her. I don't think it's going to be very kind for her. And I would not go with Jolie Olympica just because she is so fast. And I don't really trust her being able to carry that, especially if she's going to be up there with a horse like Rushing Fall, who does like the lead.
Yeah.
I completely agree with the pace scenario in here. I wrote down on my notes. I think there's a lot of speed in the race. The 2, the 4, the 6, and the 8, they all have speed. I guess rushing Fall's gonna want the front in here. Sammy, who do you think I picked?
Don't tell me you picked Secret Message.
I picked Secret Message. Yeah,
Did you?
I did. I did. I did pick Secret Message.
And Great Emotion. No, but when I was looking at this pace projector, it doesn't. I think Rushing Fall is going to be in a beautiful spot. She's going to be sitting second on the outside of Julia Olympica, and I think she's just going to run right by. And
how's the 4 going to be outside of the
crazy.
6?
6 is a speed.
So you think the 6 is going to clear?
Says she's going to be about a half length in front. Here, I'll send you a picture.
I wouldn't put too much. I wouldn't put too much into that. I know the programs are really, I know the programs can tend to be really good, but I wouldn't put too much stock into that. I don't think Julia Olympica is going to be able to clear. And if she does clear, then you might want to watch out for her.
That's pace projector for time form. They're usually about almost correct.
I wouldn't put extremely much time. I mean, if Rushing Fall is sitting a half length behind Julia Olympica, and she's not able to slow it down a little bit on the front end, and Rushing Fall doesn't get eaten up by that pace too much, then that would obviously be a very good position for her. But
yeah.
I would definitely agree with Andrew that, we've seen in the past that Rushing Fall does want the lead. And it's very logical to see that she would be able, that would be what would happen with her. The other thing that is worth mentioning about Rushing Fall, she loves Keene. She's had 5 races there. She's won 4 times. The one race was a 4th behind Uni in the First Lady last year. And you guys said that race was a clunker. I would hesitate to call that a clunker per se. Obviously, it wasn't the Rushing Fall that we expect to see all the time. But the horses that beat her in front, Uni went on to win the Breeders' Cup Mile. Juliet Foxtrot didn't run in the Breeders' Cup. Juliet Foxtrot has run some really nice races. And then Basilica was she's second. Was she second or she was second in the Breeders' Cup Turf last year? So a horse that was the Eclipse Award winner, Breeders' Cup Mile champion, the runner-up in the Breeders' Cup Turf, and in between them, Juliet Foxtrot, who's also running in this race. I wouldn't say that would be. I wouldn't qualify that as a clunker.
It was just.
Well, I didn't call it a clunker. I said she'd probably have to be a clunker to not. She'd have to run a clunker to not.
Yeah.
I said she'd have to run a clunker not to win. That's not true because of the pace scenario. I jumped a little bit there. No, but she'd have to run a clunker to not hit the board. I'll put it that way.
I don't think Dennis. I don't think she would clear by a length and a half. If she clears, it's not going to be by that much.
Nah, I don't think they're not going to let her go like that.
I don't think so either.
I just don't think that I just don't think that she'd be able to clear by a length and a half. If she clears, it's not going to be by that much. I'm not saying she can't clear because that's what the pace projection's saying, but I doubt that she clears by that much.
But people might not agree with me, but I have Julia Olympica 4th. I don't really like because if you throw out her 5.5. Because when I'm handicapping these route races, I like to kind of throw out the under 6 furlong races. And what do you have left? I just think if you have the second place performance where she tired out, she got caught by Keeper of the Stars, and Rushing Fall is way better.
Yeah, no, I don't think either of us. I wasn't insinuating that I would pick Julia Olympica at all. Yeah. I just think that she's going to be the real determining factor of this race. I'm not
she's
saying
the key.
Andrew, but
I agree. She's the key to the race.
And I don't trust really those Brazil races because who's she beating? Who's she facing against? And I just don't really want her. So I'm not going to usually. I
also never want to bet Mike Smith on the turf. For as much praise as he gets, he's not a good turf rider. Never has been. Except, what, did he ride Lore back in the 90s?
Yes, he did ride Lore.
Yes.
Right. So, yeah. Besides, I've seen him give some pitiful turf rides, especially here in New York over the last couple of years when he's come in on Belmont Stakes cards. I don't know what he thinks he's doing. So
Yeah.
I actually
Well,
threw the
also,
6 completely out here. I think she's just gonna fade.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think that Julia Olympica is going to be anywhere near the top four, especially if she sets the kind of pace that
I just
I
threw her
think
in.
that she would.
I
That I
was
think she would set.
I was debating her look. Is Chad Brown going to do it again without the? Because that horse loves to run in the board, and we all know Chad Brown with his longest place.
I put her second for the value to try and create some giant value in here.
I felt like she was interesting.
I like both the 1 and the 7 in here for the same reason, and believe it or not, it's this race. Both of them closed into the first quarter was fast, but the half and the 3/4 was pretty slow in that race at Churchill Downs. And the reason I took the 1 is simply because Graham Motion's on fire, and Graham Motion and Johnny V have been teaming up to win with long shots. I'm picking
They slowed
this
down
horse.
a little bit.
Yeah, but what?
23%
A month
on the
ago.
year.
A month, yeah, come on, that's ridiculous. And then the fact that they're getting away with these big bombs, and I don't think this horse is going to be 15-1. I think this horse is going to come down a little bit, maybe be 10, 11-1, because people are going to see that. But I still think that's okay value in here, and I'd love to see Graham Motion beat Chad. That would just make me so happy inside to see him on top and see the 2 Chads, second and third. Beautiful. I'm such a bad person.
The horse who I have second is I have Juliet Foxtrot. I think she has a big chance. Wonder who replaced who rides her. Because if they don't
Saez is.
I'm gonna guess Irad if Irad doesn't get to go. But somebody told me that. Somebody I know. I asked the person and. The person told me that he's going to be allowed to go, most likely, which he should not be allowed to go.
No way. No, he's got COVID. He's got to quarantine for 14 days.
He doesn't have COVID right now.
Who, Sayed?
No, Irad.
Oh, Irad. Oh, I'm sorry. I got confused there.
But if he doesn't get to go, I think he's going to ride this 2-horse. He rides for Brad Cox, and I think that he would fit this horse perfectly.
Where was he supposed to be? Saturday. Where was he supposed to be?
He was supposed to be at Delaware to ride Dunbar Road. Irad.
That's a tough call. I don't know.
Well, I would say if you give me Irad Ortiz on Juliet Foxtrot, then that makes that angle even more attractive than it already is. But because
he rides for Brad Cox.
To get to the point that Sammy made, just to go back to the Julia Olympica thing, I want to give him credit for that. That's a completely sound logic that he gave. I will say go down with the Rushing Fall ship on here, but if I were to have to say that I think the 2 horses that I would like aside from Rushing Fall would be Juliet Foxtrot and would be Secret Message. So I agree with Andrew that that even though it was a bit of a blanket finish, Secret Message obviously did have to work to win that race. It looked like she was going to get passed at multiple points in there. So I don't know how, going against Chad Brown is always a really perilous thing in American turf races, but might as well in a race like this.
Yeah, and if you don't want to go against Chad, play his other horse. If you want to, like I said in the last race, you're playing the pick 4, you're playing the pick 5, you're playing the pick 6. You have no idea what's going to happen in the bluegrass. You think Rushing Fall's the best horse? Go ahead, single her. But if you're looking like me, because I don't like to play multi-race bets other than maybe a double and an occasional pick 3, I like to play the vertical bets. So if I'm in here, I want to try and create a triple that I think is investment and try and key somebody, and you really want to make money, you probably are going to want to key a longer price on top in here. And to me, you go with the class of Graham Motion, and you go with the sneaky other Chad angle. That's why if I'm going to play a triple in this race, I'm going to box the 1, the 4, and the 7 in here. And if I'm playing supers, I'm going to throw the 2 in just because of what Jack said earlier. Because I think the 2 can be dangerous if the pace scenario doesn't unfold the way we think it is. I think the 2 might sit right behind the 4 and the 6 in there. The 2, 4, 6, 8 are probably going to be the 4 horses in front in here. And if the pace is not so fast, maybe Rushing Full is just too good. But if she throws in that clunker, the 2 comes up the rail, has enough room, I think she's okay. She won one really good race at Del Mar last year that gives her a chance. I didn't like that she just kind of wilted in the last furlong last time after going not so fast, but she's got back races that can definitely let her win in here. So I would use the 1, the 2, the 4, and the 7. That would be my top 4. I'd go 1, 7, 4, 2, just to put the longer Chad ahead of the shorter Chad and create the value. But I'm not against Rushing Full at all. She's great. She's really good horse.
Does the 8 interest you at all? I felt like if there's really going to be a pace meltdown, I think she's the one horse who I think is going to get up.
How to the lead in the lead? You don't think she's going to be near the front again?
Yeah, she will. I think she if she could sit forward and those 2 go early on. I just like her. She's consistent. I have her 3rd. She's consistent. 2 for 2 at the distance. 8 for 11 on the turf. 1 for 1 at Keeneland.
These were my notes. I wrote, I guess she can compete. Some wins in here not impressive enough. That's what I wrote. I think she might get bet a little bit, and I'm looking for something longer.
I'll hit on one other point. There, Andrew talked about the 7, the other Chad factor.
Alta?
And yeah, Alta. You've seen that. It's shown itself. The other Chad factor has shown itself many times with these horses. Most notably recently in the Justa game, you saw Chad had Newspaper of Record and Uni. Everyone was talking about those 2 horses. But there was a 3rd horse in that race, Regal Glory, who had run some sneaky good races in some graded state, lower level, grade 2, grade 3 races. And she came up and she ran third in that race, better than a lot of people would have thought her to run. So you definitely did she run 3rd or 4th? I feel like I feel like
think she ran 3rd. She beat up.
That's what I thought.
It was the 3 Chads and the horse that I picked. Who was the horse that I picked? The number 1 horse.
Beau
in that race. Beau Recall. Right. It was 4, 1, 5, 6. I think was the order.
She finished 4th.
Oni beat her for 3rd?
Yeah, that's right. Uni did beat her for 3rd. I couldn't remember whether or not she hung, but she's a typical example of another Chad, the 3rd Chad factor. And definitely don't write off Alta, because those other Chad horses can step in and run big races when you're not expecting them to.
Oh, he's a sneaky bastard. He won the UN. He had 4 horses. He wins with the 23-1 shot. It's a joke what he does. He's a freaking bastard, I swear.
I think Alta wants longer. I think the 1.25 mile would kind of fit her a little bit.
The other thing that is worth mentioning about this race is the winner of this race you're going to want to write down for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf. Rushing Fall, whoever wins this race, write them down for the Filly and Mare Turf.
It's at Keeneland. Yeah.
The distance of that race fluctuates with the various tracks that it's run at. And it's being run at Keeneland this year, which means it's at 1 mile and a 16th. Exact same conditions as this race. So
they're running.
Pencil whoever.
How are they gonna? They're really gonna run that race at 1 mile and a 16th? Are you kidding?
They ran it 1 mile and a 16th in 2015.
That's a travesty. That's awful. That's absolute garbage.
So pencil whoever wins this race in for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, because that is going to be right up whatever. If Rushing Fall wins this race, you can. Now, I don't want to say you can take it right to the bank with it, but you can be very sure that she'll run really well in the Breeders' Cup if this is any determining factor to it.
That race should be 1 mile and 3/8.
Excuse me, yeah, 1 mile and 3/16. That was my bad right there.
That's still awful. No, that should be. I can't believe. Wait, 1 mile and 3/16.
No, it is 1 mile and 3/16. So that was my mistake.
3/16. How long is a turf course at Keeneland?
That one I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't
will
think
get an
they
answer
can't
for
run
that
a
for you.
mile and 3/16 on this track.
They did it in 2018.
15?
It's a seven.
American
It's a
Pharaohs year?
It's a 7.5. It's a 7.5 furlong turf course.
I can't. They don't run a mile.
They're just shortening all these races. It's a joke. There's nothing about it. They don't care about endurance anymore in American racing. It's sad.
Well, I'll make you feel.
Same turf
a little
horses
bit.
every single year.
I'll make you feel a little bit bad, Andrew, when they can run it at Belmont Park. They get it at 1.25 miles. But who knows if we'll ever see that again.
I'm going to start throwing over garbage cans. The Breeders' Cup hasn't been here in 15 years. And counting.
It's really frustrating that it hasn't been east of Churchill Downs, or it hasn't been east of Keeneland since 2005 or 7. Excuse me. I always forget that Monmouth happened, which is another, and the fact that it rained there and they'll never get a Breeders' Cup again just because of the one weekend that they got a chance it rained. Not their fault, but
it's one of the best because Curlin won.
You can have a whole hour long We could have a whole hour long discussion about why it's a travesty that the Breeders' Cup had. The Breeders' Cup used to be go around the country and be it all. Some of it worked out, going to places like Arlington and Woodbine, and Lone Star Park in 2004. That was a one-time thing, but it really, with the fact that Gulfstream had their renovation that decreased seating, Hollywood Park's gone, and that other tracks are going to synthetic now, it turned the Breeders' Cup away. So, it really turned into.
It's on NBC. They love those mountains back there. Ooh, look at the mountains. Let's not look at the horses.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting to say that between 1993 and 2003, the Breeders' Cup was not at Santa Anita at all.
And now they've had it 10 times? 11 times?
Yeah, they went a whole decade without having a Breeders' Cup. What is it, 12 years? It's been at Santa Anita in 2008, 10, 12, 13, 14, 16, and 19. So in 12 years, it's been there 7 times.
It's Christ.
Yeah,
They could just bring it, and then they're gonna. What would they have?
Look. A guy came to my school when I was in high school, and he worked for the Breeders' Cup. Believe it or not, it was one of the craziest things. I thought, oh, this is going to be great. So I asked him a question: is the reason the Breeders' Cup has been at Belmont because of the lack of luxury seating? And he said yes. I guessed, and I was right. They don't want it there because they want to sell the expensive seats to celebrities. They also are concerned about the weather, but look at Churchill Downs. Look at Keeneland. It's the same. It's going to be almost the same thing, pretty much, right? We have some Halloweens here in New York that are in the 70s. You can catch a nice way, but we're getting off track. Maybe one day I will film an hour-long video on why the Breeders' Cup should come back to Belmont at least one more time so I can actually go. But well,
it'll come back. It'll come back at some point. It's just is that some point going to be 30 years down the road or 5 years?
Yeah. The thing is, Jack, I don't want them to ruin the racetrack just to get the Breeders' Cup. I love Belmont exactly the way it is. I don't want them to put in luxury boxes. I don't want them to change the backyard. The Islanders already took 15% of it away. The third floor seats right on the finish line at Belmont are the best seats at any sporting venue I've ever seen. The sight lines are absolutely incredible. And if they put luxury boxes there that are going to get used 2 days a year, it would be an absolute middle finger to all hardcore New York racing fans. All right, so I digress, and we move on to the 9th race, which is the Bluegrass. This is a race that, like the Wood Memorial, to me was unfairly downgraded from a Grade 2 to a Grade 1 a few years ago.
Yep.
I don't see what's
Always-
wrong with it.
It always draws 13 horses.
It
14
always draws a big field. Maybe because it's
just the
usually
fact
a
that
little weaker.
It's just the fact it hasn't produced a Kentucky Derby winner since 1991, and that's the real unfortunate thing for both the Wood and the Bluegrass. They haven't produced Derby winners since 2000 for the Wood and 1991 for the Bluegrass. But we keep invoking the history card for a lot. Like, for perfect example, someone invoked the history card for the Hollywood Gold Cup as to why that race still has a grade 1. The Bluegrass is more historic than the Hollywood Gold Cup ever will be, and that gets downgraded. So the history card for these grade 1s, you can only invoke that so many times, but that would be the explanation that I would have on that point.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, Dennis. Again, I forgot to mention your picks. I'm very sorry. And he says,
texted me.
If you
You
don't want the
copied me.
luxury boxes, then you don't get the Breeders' Cup. You're right. It's all about one thing to them.
We can bring
Dollar
an
sign,
Acura.
dollar sign, dollar sign. Well, yep, that's pretty much it. So you want to
He
share
says-
Dennis's picks, Sammy? You want to share them quick for the 8th race?
He says I copied him. What did he have in the race? I just copied him. I just sent a screenshot and texted you. Let me check.
I'll look. I'm almost on it now. I just want to make sure that we don't leave him out.
He said, "Oh, he has the same top 3 as me." That's why he said that. Coincidence?
Okay, hold on. I want to read this quickly. 4, Rushing Fall. I mean, it's Rushing fucking Falls. That's his explanation. Okay, number 2, Juliet Foxtrot loves Keeneland and I think is a live long shot for pieces. 8, Toinette ran against Juliet Foxtrot twice and was barely beat by her both times. Also, at Young_Capper, my friend who knows Cali Racing likes her a lot. So those are Dennis's ideas. So he likes pretty much all pace horses in the Jenny Wiley. He doesn't think the thing is going to fall apart. Okay.
Do you want to go through this field in the grass or?
No, because it's going to make me.
Why don't you? Oh.
It's going to make me throw up if we go through this field. You could if you want, Sammy. You can enlighten us.
I was gonna say why don't you? Because most of the horses in this race have at least an outside chance.
They do. They do because they're all so bad.
Yeah. The only horse I only tossed one horse, and that was Hard Lighting. I did not like that horse at all. And still, he's faced some decent horses. Dr. Post, Solvolante. But all right, let's go through this field. Chivalry, number 1. I felt like very consistent horse. He was in my contention for top. I had like 6, 7 horses. Didn't know where to put them. If he runs his Buffalo Man from November 30th, I think he's gonna win.
I guess
And
I wrote could run okay. Ralph Nix won for his last 21 with graded stake starters. Ralph Nix.
Yeah, but he's just a very consistent horse. A little concerning why Harlemio didn't win. Why, I don't know why. That's what I wish they would have kept him on, but it's whatever.
Now, here's my thing with Shivery is I think I like him more than both of you two do. I threw Shivery in here for second, and I would say, you cited the Buffalo Man, and not that the Buffalo Man wasn't a good race for him, but I would say the race that if he were to run back the Florida Derby, if he runs that race back, he was beaten. I mean, he was beaten soundly by Tislaw, but he was beaten 4 1/4 by the horse who's the best 3-year-old in the United States.
For sure. I haven't questioned.
And he's also going to get a very generous setup in this race. He's going
to be on the inside rail, chilling.
He will be very close to the front end, but as we've talked about, closers don't fit Keeneland perfectly. Obviously, things could change in this race as that's horse racing. But Rushy, I'm looking at my notes right now. Chivalry is definitely a horse you don't want to toss out. You could look at him and say he only has the 3 wins in his career, but he has the 5 other in the money. It's for Chivalry definitely is going to be live. That race that he ran, the allowance race that he ran behind Soli Volante and Jesus' team, third in that, those were 2 fairly solid horses.
Jesus' team ran huge. I feel
Jesus' team ran really, really well in that race. Sully Volante, that was a paid workout, but he was Shivery
Ran
was
in-
really good in that race, and then
Yeah.
he was Florida Derby's already as advertised, so I actually had him second in this race. Spoiler
Yeah.
for me, we'll get to her later, but Swiss Skydiver was a bet against for me.
Yeah.
Same
Number
here.
2, Fitting the Fierce. This horse, I'm all over. I think this horse is gonna run a good race. You have to give this horse props. He runs against the toughest horse, and he runs his race every single time. I just couldn't leave him out. Let's look at his past performance. Silver Prospector, Tis the Law, Enforceable, Mr. Mono, My Modernist, Major Fed, New York King G, Art Collector, and Shared Sense. That's some tough horses that he's faced against.
I think either Lee Davis or Peter Rotundo like this horse as their Kentucky Derby future bet.
I think he's coming to money in the Kentucky Derby.
Obviously, they're very, very smart guys. I think he can run good in here. I'm kind of similar to the one in here. I think they're almost the same horse. I don't like that this horse hasn't won at all since his maiden race. I know a lot of people say, don't worry about the speed figures and how well they ran. Well, I like to see horses that can actually find the winner's circle. And I feel like there are
Country
better
House
options.
gonna find a winner's circle.
No, he found second place, and he had a nice place price at 49-1 for my dad on Cigar Mile Day 2018. He was good. Got up for second behind Kentucky Wildcat.
I'm the same way as these two. I love Finnick the Fierce underneath. If you watch my show, my co-host has been all over this horse, or basically every single race he's ran in. He's always consistent underneath. I had just threw him third.
That's what I did too.
Second, you can throw him second, third, or fourth. It really doesn't matter. But don't it would be a disservice to if you play a super in this race to not throw him in at least somewhere, because he will definitely be coming late. Even with the iffiness that Keeneland can be with closers, he will definitely be at the very least coming.
I agree. Should get a good trip too.
Number 3. This, I know I've told Jack about this horse millions of times. I'm really high on this horse. I think this horse, he's just getting better and better. He stretched out to a mile, gets a 103 speed figure, beats Shared Sense. Your Indiana Derby eased up by 6.5, and Fitting the Fierce is third at 5-1. Who Brian Hernandez Jr., who's having a pretty good meet. I just like this horse. I think get some value with the horse, and I'll take him.
Art Collector's going to make me regret not picking him. I didn't pick him in my preview, and as soon as I put the video out, I'm like, I'm going to regret picking Art Collector.
You have a chance to redeem yourself right now. Go ahead. Do it.
I'm gonna double down here, just because I don't like to change picks. So, but Art Collector, I'm sitting on him waiting for Art Collector to run a huge race here and make me look like an idiot for not including him in my top 4.
That's my one angle. Like, I remember this a couple weeks ago. Have you guys heard of the horse Honey I'm Good?
Sure.
A sprinter. You've heard of her for Steve Asmussen?
Yeah.
This horse, she won, and then she ran like in 97. She was going like 93, 97. So I was like, okay, see what this horse got. Pick her, wins at 5-1. That's just my angle. You want to see improving horses. And Art Collector is the perfect example of improving horse.
The speed figure last time just jumps off the freaking page. I realize this is a big move up in class, but I absolutely respect this horse. I like some others, but I included him. I'm still thinking we're talking about fillies. Jesus Christ.
We'll have enough Philly talk later.
Yeah.
No, but the Art Collector, but what else? I lost my train of thought. No, but really, now I know. But what really interests me about him is that he skipped the Indiana Derby, which he would have won eased up. It's not even a question. And they pointed to this race, which I thought was interesting. 4, Mr. Big News. He wasn't over like 50-1. I'll say it like that. We'll see what he can do. Do you guys like him at all?
Mr. Big News is, for me at least, is very similar to Finnick the Fierce. The one problem with me is, and this is the reason why I didn't include him, I did go very closer heavy in my super for the third and fourth positions, but I don't think that it is going to be I don't think it's going to benefit him the most running at Keeneland being a closer, but definitely, Sammy's exactly right there. He was a complete overlay in the Oakmont Stakes. Anyone who had him, props to you, because he was sitting on a race like that.
Him, but I landed on Basin. I texted you before the race and say this is Mr. Money 2.0 just as a joke, and he ends up winning the race.
I don't particularly remember that, but I'm not going to say that it didn't happen. But Mr. Big News is, I don't think this isn't the spot for him here, just because I don't think the track's going to, or the race is going to play into his strengths necessarily. But if he gets the right setup, he could be one that, in the Kentucky Derby every year, and we can get to this when the Kentucky Derby comes around, but there's always these big long shots. Country House is a perfect example last year that fill out the supers. Don't necessarily win or run second, but instilled regard in 2018.
Looking at Lee.
Looking at Lee.
Look what he's done now.
Lee,
Keep your horses in training.
Looking at Lee, and then you go back further, which is two that I identified. But 2013 and 14, Dallas Stewart had 50-1 long shots.
He's the master at finishing second and third with long shots in the Derby.
So, he's definitely one that down the road in the Kentucky Derby, if he can find a way to get in, you'll definitely want to consider him, especially if the Kentucky Derby we finally get a Kentucky Derby where there can actually be a fast pace and not just horses coast on the lead.
Which we used to get. Like 2011, 2012, 2013, those paces were insane. They went 45, 109, and 4. You see Orb coming from 16th or whatever he was. I'll have another close from 7th. Bodemeister ran one of the greatest losing races in the history of the Kentucky Derby to hang on for second there. Not lately though. They've just been, maybe the first quarter's been fast, but they've really been able to slow it down around the turn and down the backs.
Every Derby has shaped up the same way. A couple fast horses go up there. And Maximum Security went fast early to get position, and then just slowed it down the entire. Like Saya's walked the dog home. Obviously, the disqualification happened, but Justify sat behind Promises Fulfilled, took the lead down the backside, didn't look back. Always Dreaming was fairly close. Nyquist was fairly close. It works out the same every single year. For the 2014 or 13, excuse me. Andrew's exactly right. The last time that we had a Derby that was actually interesting pace-wise, but we'll get to that. Can be a discussion the time the Derby comes around.
When I was at the Derby last year, but I couldn't see really what was going on. But I watched that race. You just have to give props to Flavian Pratt. That was an amazing ride. He put that horse stalking like 6. Just made his move. Great ride.
Yeah, I don't know why exactly he claimed foul in that race. But we could talk about that another time. The stewards there at Churchill Downs, they should have had the inquiry sign up from the second the horses crossed the wire. They never put the inquiry sign up once. That was a disgusting thing. John Court, thank God, claimed foul on Long Range Toddy, and he was affected. If he didn't claim foul, this whole thing might have been totally not even seen by the stewards. And I know that Pratt claimed foul. He claimed it for no reason. He didn't get bothered at all. It just really bothered me.
Told him to.
Yeah, well, look, Jose, he could do whatever he wants. It was the other Belmont horse.
And what I didn't understand was all that.
But
go ahead, Jack.
No, if we can put our tinfoil hats on and go some conspiracy theories on here. Obviously, a lot of us didn't see it because we were focused on watching our horses. But I know a couple of people on the turn who saw it and said this is going to be something where if Maximum Security is able to hold on, there'll be an inquiry and he'll come down. The stewards were probably hoping that the jockeys would keep the jockey code of don't claim foul in the Kentucky Derby so that they wouldn't have to mess with it. But it's they make the decision and come down. So it's my conspiracy theory opinion is that the stewards didn't want it to come down on them. and they were very happy to throw the blame on Flavian Pratt and John Court for being the guys to make the foul claim, so that they didn't have to be the ones that initiated it. But
No, he didn't claim foul. Foul.
That's
excuse
sad.
me, John Court.
That's sad, Rob. And it's ridiculous that some of these stewards, especially the NYRA stewards are just incompetent. But the fact that they miss some of these things, there's 3 of them watching the races, 2 through binoculars, 1 on the TV screen. You think they see when a horse comes out 4 pads. But we can get into that another day. Let's move stuff along. I don't know if anybody cares about this. So let's talk about the number 5 man in the can.
This horse, I liked how he won going to open company because he's running against state bred, but he won pretty good last time. I just beat DeMartini. I was gonna use him, but then he just didn't seem like the type of horse that would run good and watch him win on Saturday.
I think he's just okay. I think he's okay. He's won his last 3. The speed figures, I'd say he's just a cut below these.
Yeah.
I would say the exact same thing. Sammy makes a very good point. His first run in open company since his second start of his career was a really, really nice race. But the question that you have to ask is that race against Dean Martini, who, he won the Ohio Derby, but how much stock do we really put into that? And Erner, who was a decent horse in the Indiana Derby, how much stock do you put in that? I don't put too much into it. Respect him as a horse, but I don't think he would have to run so much better than he has in the past to win this race of this company.
Horses, like, it might just be me, but when I look at those horses, like, you beat DeMartini, but the DeMartini kind of got the perfect setup. So if DeMartini goes out and wins next time in the West Virginia Derby, then he beats a good horse. I just don't take full advantage of that after one race. That might just be me.
I don't have much else to say.
Yeah, I think that's it for me on him.
Yeah. Number 6, hard lighting, toss. That's all I'm gonna say. That horse was the only thing I liked about him is that he faced Dr. Post. That's legit.
I tossed him too.
I think he's a step below the 5 in here, and we said that the 5 is a step below the top in here, and I guess maybe if a bunch of horses don't show up, he can run 4th, but I really don't have anything good to say.
Oh, we're back to the filly. Swiss Skydiver. This horse is not going off at 3-1. I can tell you that.
Oh, she will take. She's going to take so much money. Not only because she has the 3 consecutive wins in graded stakes company, but a lot of times in races like, especially in a race like the Bluegrass that has Kentucky Derby implications attached to it, the sentimental side of people is going to come out. There hasn't been a filly to run. There hasn't been a filly in the Kentucky Derby in 10 years. One hasn't won it since 1988. Everyone knows, the 3 that have won it. Everyone wants to see it, and we were originally thinking earlier this year with the really good filly Taraz, who's running at Oakland, which is really unfortunate what happened to her, losing her with so much potential. But it's come back around that the potential of a filly running in the Kentucky Derby. She is a really good horse against fillies. Does have the 3 great wins in the graded stakes, and she's going to take a lot of money here. On top, her performances on top of the sector, and it's just the question is how much better is she than any of the other horses, any of the other really good males in this race? Because it's not like she's running against bad male horses. She's running against horses that have, they have their stakes wins. Bason's a grade 1 winner at 2. I just grabbed right off the top, but Rushy is another horse that I really liked in this race. That has run really nice races at Allowance Company and then ran 3rd in the Santa Anita Unlimited Budget, ran in the Belmont Stakes in 2013. She was 6th, and the best finish recently was Untappable 5th in the Haskell. So she has to contend with that history and the fact that, it might not be, she could get a good setup, but she also could not get a good setup.
I
So,
hate to cut you off,
Wait,
Jack,
wait.
but it appears that we
Oh,
have
sorry.
I think
lost the stream
The stream.
again. Fuck you, OBS. Alright, so here's what we're gonna do. Last time it came back. So hopefully it comes back, and if it doesn't come back, what we're gonna do is we're still gonna use this, and I'm gonna upload it separately. Oh, god damn. I have great internet, and I've never had a problem streaming.
It just came back.
Yeah, I just saw it now. Okay, well, Jack, you
But
just missed.
get on your point. When I was thinking about it,
You made such great points there. Would you like to make them again?
I mean, that was YouTube telling me to shut up and get on with the point, because that was a lot of embellishment information that doesn't really matter in terms of this race. But I just wanted to mention it, and I want for that. That was not my own research. That was me pulling spark notes out of that,
Which is fine.
Horse article. But if you're interested in reading that more in depth, definitely go take a look at that over on their website. But I would just say, if she gets the right setup and doesn't have a horse pressuring her, which I can't guarantee that's not a guarantee. And if it's not a guarantee, then in a race like this, I play it like it's not going to happen. So, great story, obviously sentimentally rooting for her. Kenny McPeak, a personal friend of mine, would love to see him get to the Kentucky Derby. But in all practicality, she was a bet against for me. I wasn't comfortable putting her on top in this race. I did have her running 5th just because I do respect her, but that's what I have to say about her. I'll let you guys go on.
To get to your point, what also you have to think about is what you're saying is who she beat. And what happens if you throw in, say, a horse like, I don't know, give me a 3-year-old, maybe like
Tonalist Shape. If you put Tonalist Shape in this race, she would not.
I don't know, maybe like a Modernist. Just say Modernist. You put him against what he would die is. Maybe it's not a good point, but like the girl. Would he be the Swiss skydiver? You know what I mean?
I think this horse is better than Modernist. I'm not way against this horse.
Yeah, she's better.
Here.
She's better than Modernist.
That was just an example, but you kind of understand my point. With a horse, if you put like a
a middle level, if you put a middle level 3-year-old.
If you put her,
I mean, you could get this out of the way. She wouldn't beat Tiz the Law. She wouldn't beat King Guillermo, and those are in my opinion the top 2. I'll respect the people who like Honor AP. She wouldn't beat. I don't think she would beat Honor AP. I don't think she'll beat that Bob Baffert, Los Al winner, Uncle Chuck.
She might have a chance against Authentic.
But I mean, this is hypotheticals right now. But for the moment of the Bluegrass, I just
she would be like maybe like she would be an A horse, an A, or she would be in the middle of an A or B if she was always running against boys.
I mean, Swiss Skydiver doesn't jump off the fence as a horse like a winning colors or a Rachel or any of the.
Yeah. She doesn't seem like the horse that would win that.
She doesn't fit the mold of the really for a to beat males in the United States. It's different around the world, but specifically in the United States, for a filly to be able to run against the males and win consistently,
they gotta be really freaking good. They have to be insanely.
If you listen to,
you have to remember them. You have to be able to remember them years later.
Yes.
Down the Europe, it happens all the time.
There's a reason why There's a reason why Unlimited Budget runs 6th in the Belmont Stakes, and people probably don't even remember that she ran in the race, because Unlimited Budget was
I picked her 4th.
But the filly's got to be a significant cut above most of the other top level colts. And if you look at the Triple Crown races and the big grade ones that have been won by fillies, Winning Colors was better than on her Kentucky Derby day. She was better than most of the other horses in that race. Rachel was better than every horse in the Preakness. Rachel was better than every horse in the Haskell. Rags to Riches somehow, I still don't know how, was better than Curlin in the Belmont.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Swiss Skydiver just doesn't fit the mold of that freakish talent
She doesn't
that
feel like she
you've
would
got to
win the-
be.
I don't think she doesn't seem like the horse that would win the Derby. She's not.
She's
she
not
doesn't
winning
fit
the
that.
Derby. Mark it down. If she wins the Derby, I'll give somebody $50. I have no problem with that. But in this
But
race,
you know what was very weird?
go ahead.
Did you see? You know they worked her on the turf after she won the fantasy, right?
Where is that?
They worked her on the turf.
May 16th.
They worked her. Why is she working on the turf? That's a little interesting.
I don't know why the hell that would happen. Is it a misprint?
I don't think so. It says she worked at Keeneland on the turf. Is she really naturally a turf horse?
Why would they ever do that? This horse has never showed anything that...
And here's the other point to bring up with Swiss Skydiver is that, we don't even know if she's the best 3-year-old filly in the United States, let alone the best horse. That would be the other point that I would make with her is that,
I don't think she's even close.
Yeah, I think Gamin's better than her, and you don't know any of the other horses underneath, but Gamin's better. We haven't seen Donna Veloce, but everyone's going to forget about Donna Veloce until she comes back and runs again. Donna Veloce could be better than both of them. And, we can speculate on who the best filly is, but I don't think it's Swiss Skydiver. And if she's not the best filly, then I would be very wary of her against the boys in this race.
All right.
I just went.
Can
I went on. Yeah.
Can I just say I like her for second for one reason, and I said this just as we were starting this race. I'm underwhelmed by the field in here, and I don't think the pace is going to be that fast. Jack has mentioned a few times already that Keeneland favors horses near the front on the dirt. I think this horse has the potential to win the race. I'm going to take a shot against her, and you're going to see very soon who that is. But I think she's kind of going to get an easy trip in here. I don't have a lot to say just because I really don't like a lot of other horses in here.
I went on Equibase. I went on Daredevil. She Dares the Devil. They're sisters. He's produced one turf horse. Have you heard of horse Deviant from the breeder? The horse that took their shot from Lone Star or something in the Breeders' Cup last year.
Deviant?
Ran 13th. You probably don't remember him.
No, I can't remember.
But he was a big long. I know Lane Luzzy rode him. But I think.
Well, she's also by a Johannesburg mare, and if anyone is knows way too much, is like me and knows way too much than any normal person should know about Breeders' Cup and racing stuff, is that Johannesburg was a really high-class European 2-year-old. And he came over and won the breed when Aidan O'Brien, before the juvenile turf existed, and Aidan O'Brien would bring his top European 2-year-olds and run them on the dirt in the juvenile. Johannesburg was his first winner with that kind of experiment. So that's where the turf may come from.
If I go to Timeform and you look at the siblings, 24 starts on the turfs. Maybe they were trying to see what they have. Maybe in the future they're going to try on the turf. I just don't know. But number 8 is the horse who I was debating. Do I go with him? Art Collector, Basin. But Basin was very interesting. I'll say it like that. And I was talking to Jack last night about the distance. I don't think that's going to be a problem when I look back at the race. He's fine. So I'm not concerned about that. I actually picked Basin.
I actually picked Basin on top. I think he's going to be in a very similar position. I think the two horses, and we'll get to Rushy in a minute, but I think the two horses that are going to be sitting right behind Swiss Skydiver and Shivery, who I think are going to be the two horses that are setting the lead. I don't want to.
They have Basin on third. Then they have Rushy fourth.
That's where I think those two will. I think they'll be in a perfect position. One of those two coming off the turn to be able to make a run down the stretch, and I think it would be one of those two. That one of those two you could go with. My co-host went with Rushy, I went with Basin. I give Basin a lot of respect for that second place finish that he had behind Charlatan in his division of the Arkansas Derby. Obviously, that was the second. The Rebel wasn't really a bad race for him. He was third in that race, and the only horse that beat him besides Nadal was a 80-1 shot that was able to come up because Nadal burned everyone else out on the front end. I just finished in the Oaklawn Stakes. I found a lot of reasons to like him. I think he gets a good setup, and I think he has enough class to win this race. I don't think he's on the Tis the Law levels of horses, but he's probably a really good second tier 3-year-old.
Yeah, he's gonna be in the Derby. Number 9, attachment rate. I don't think really anything of him.
Attachment rate is a very deep closer, and he would need.
He's not gonna get the pace.
He has been the type of horse that has needed a pace in front of him. He's not going to get that. So that's strike 1, and strike 2 is the fact that Keeneland doesn't play well to closers. So
they're stalking, but he's gonna be very. It looks like he's gonna be very wide.
Yeah, and if he's wide and he's not, if a horse is wide here, and they're not really close to the front, I don't think they're going to be super.
And what was very surprising was when I'm looking at time form, there was a speed bias on Matt Wenday. It's kind of speedy, or it's a kind of closer. But he had a pace to run. When he has a pace to run into, he can't run into it.
I think he's one of the best horses in the race. I don't know if he's a cut below necessarily. I think he competes well in here. He reminds me of the kind of horse that's just going to run evenly around the track. I think he's going to be sitting maybe third in this race, and I think he's going to be third at the wire. So I picked him third, if that makes any sense at all.
I have him like 5th or 6th.
I think he's going to set a good trip, just like Jack said. If the race unfolds just like that, I'll be very happy. If it's 7, 8, 10, going down the backside, not so fast, that's exactly what I want.
Number 10 is Rushy.
You skipped the 9, didn't you?
I was on 9 last time, attachment rate.
Yeah, no, he's in the right spot. Rushy was the next horse.
Oh, I had a little interruption here. I'm sorry. I had a little interruption a couple minutes ago, so I had to turn my microphone off.
Mm-hmm. But what do you think about attachment rate?
Attachment rate, just the same thing as I said about a few in here. I think he's just a cut below. The figs aren't there to make him a win candidate.
Yeah. He's just a cut below, but he's a horse who I wouldn't be surprised if he hits the board. Number 10 is Rushy. This horse ran a nice race in the Santa Anita Derby. I felt like that was a good race.
It was a pretty good race. I picked this horse on top, and I hate to pick West Coast horses because, of course, I have an East Coast bias. It's just the way I am.
I picked him 4th.
I think he's just going to set the perfect trip. Outside.
Castellano always does well in this race.
When I see Castellano coming to ride anybody, automatically, that's a good sign. I don't like that the horse has just the one big figure, but
I would like to see him back it up here.
Yeah,
but he has a nice workout.
Does, and Mike McCarthy does well shipping in.
Yes.
Now the race for Rushy was another horse that I put a lot of consideration in, but the race for me that was the big marker for him. Obviously, he was second behind Charlatan in the allowance race where Charlatan won.
That was concerning.
He was second. In what way was it concerning? He was second behind Charlatan when Charlatan won it by a ton of lengths.
It wasn't really concerning. I would have liked to see him not lose by 10 lengths.
But the big race for me with Rushy was
allowance.
May 2nd. Race 10 on Arkansas Derby Day. the
I think I had him
allowance where he came very late to win that race, and he beat a really nice horse,
Yeah.
Candy Tycoon,
And
who's a
background.
graded stake. Graded
Who's
stake.
all right.
Candy Tycoon is a graded stakes winner, or multiple graded stakes winner. So, I look at that and I see that was a really good form for him in that race. And then he came back. He run a respectable third behind Honor AP, won the Santa Anita Derby, and a horse next weekend, or a horse who next weekend, I should say, is very likely going to win the Haskell Authentic. So, it's too bad we can't run the Haskell before then, because if Authentic were to win the Haskell, then I would be all over Rushy in this race. But I think Rushy is going to run a very similar race to the race that Basin runs. And if he does that, then he's going to be in a very good position to win. He's the other horse that I left out because there were other horses that I decided to put in. And I'm going really nervous about the fact that I did leave him out. So he's very dangerous in this race.
And this brings us to
Number 11?
today's, hold on. We have to mention today's sponsor. Today's sponsor is Monmouth Park. Get your tickets for the Haskell Invitational right now. Just give us one big fat Benjamin Franklin, and we'll let you sit anywhere you want. That's right, one big
$100.
fat Benjamin Franklin to get into the Haskell Invitational. July 18th at beautiful Monmouth Park in Oceanport, New Jersey. You can just come the day before and get in for free like I'm going to do and Sammy's going to do. Or you could give us a big fat Ben Franklin and see a lackluster group of 3-year-olds run a mile and an eighth around Monmouth Park. Choose wisely and come visit us down on the Jersey Shore.
30% discount. Number 11 was Hunt the Front. This horse is going to have to get an Everfast Preakness trip to run well. He's going to have to get a pace meltdown. A big pace meltdown. But if he gets that pace meltdown, he's going to run good.
I'm just going to say right now, I don't like the 11, I don't like the 12, and I don't like the 13. That's all I got to say. I think they're too slow. You guys can say whatever you want.
The 13. Yeah, the 13. I
don't like the post either.
It's the only horse. The only horse in the race I didn't know who the horse was. The only horse. I knew who everybody else was. It was crazy. But this horse, we're getting off track. But our number 12 in Forcible, I feel like this horse is 50 years old. He's always in those races. What do you guys think about him?
I picked him fourth. I was swallowing I've been talking all night about the Keeneland bias against closers, and yet I picked two closers, third and fourth in this
It's
race.
a fast pace, it's going to say.
That's all right.
So
right.
I completely took my own advice and threw it out the window for this race. But I like the fact that Enforceable, you go back to his last few races.
He has some nice turn moves.
I wasn't impressed at all with the race that he ran in the Kentucky Jockey Club. I think that left a lot to be desired. But he won the Lecomte, closing into a fairly slow pace. He ran
I don't think
a really
that was a bad
good
race in the Jockey Club.
It wasn't a bad race. I wasn't overly encouraged
But he
by it.
flattened by
That's getting off point. He won the Lecomte, closing into a fairly slow pace. His problem in his last two races is he's been closing into races he was closing into races at the fairgrounds where there was a established front runner in the Risen Star and two established front runners in the Louisiana Derby. And the problem with him is that those two horses didn't back up. And it's really hard to win a race as a closer when the front runner doesn't back up. Mr. Monomoy is a really solid 3-year-old. I'm not sure if he's going to get back on the Kentucky Derby trail, but that win in the Risen Star was a really good win for him. And Enforceable was second behind that. And then in the race after, the Wells Bayou New York Traffic, when those two just merry-go-round the entire field, the closers were absolutely screwed in that race. And he was among that group, and he finished fifth behind, if I'm not screwing the order up, Modernist and Major. I threw my advice out the window, but I like his last couple of performances. Even though he was fifth in Louisiana Derby, I think he was a lot better than that fifth. But he could also run into the same thing where the front running horses don't back up, which if he does, then that would be very concerning.
Yeah.
But I swallowed that and went with him fourth.
Yeah, and the 13 is Tiesto.
Tiesto?
Tiesto. First of all, this horse is running on turf, and this horse can't even get over a 90. 86. I don't like to put speed figures too into hand, but The only thing I like about this horse is that they think so high of him to put him in a 100-point Derby prep. So they must think something of this horse.
Yeah, I mean,
600,000.
I moved a horse from turf to the dirt back in the 90s. I forgot his name. He wound up winning like 16 races in a row or something like that.
Yeah, his name was Cigar.
Yeah, I don't know who's heard of him. I don't know.
Yeah, all he won was the Breeders' Cup Classic. And
he had a perfect season, 12 wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, Belmont.
Hey, two-time Mass Cap winner. Let's not forget that. Screw the Breeders' Cup, screw the Dubai World Cup. Two-time Mass Cap winner. Most important races he ever ran.
Yep. But Belmont, this is what he's good at. But my top 4 is Art Collector, Basin, Finnick the Fierce, and Rushy.
My top 4.
And my 5th pick is Swiss.
Swiss Skydiver. Okay. I'm going... This is a pretty chalky exacta if you consider how big the field is. It's just that I didn't like many horses in here. It's a pretty logical super, but it might pay just considering of how big the field size is and other horses might be involved. I went 10, 7, 8, 3 in here. As I said, I like Rushy on top. Could get a good trip. I think the 7, the filly might get to walk on the lead, so I'm a little bit scared about that. Plus, I do respect her talent. She's not a bet against for me. I think she's a use. And Basin, like I said, can run evenly for 3rd. And then I'll respect Art Collector's Big Fig last time, just as I'm respecting Rushy's Big Fig last time as well. And I put him 4th. I guess if you want to use somebody else, I would use Finnick the Fierce, out of respect for you guys.
Yeah.
I kind of already made this a little bit clear, but I'll just say I went 8, 1, 2, 12 in this again. I also have my co-host and I also kind of share the same thing where if we like 2 horses equally in a certain way, we'll go with the one that has the better price. And that was kind of the way with me with Chivalry and Rushy, and I just kind of threw Chivalry in there. You could very easily take the super that I made and swap out Chivalry with Rushy. I just wanted to take the bit of a shot with him. You're never going to get prices with him again, but you'll probably get a decent price with him with the fact that Swiss Skydiver is going to take so much.
I don't think you guys brought this up, but I think one of the reasons she's going to take a lot of money is because she wasn't a threw her in at the last second. And that it often tells handicappers that, oh, they think this horse is going to run a ginormous race. So maybe we'll see. There could be people out we just talked about. They singled the 2, they singled the 4, and then they singled the 7 in here. Maybe the pick 3 doesn't pay too bad because the field sizes are okay. There's people out there that do that. I'm not one of those people. I respect her a lot. But in the scope of one race, and that's the way... I don't handicap these races to look one into the next. I handicap them individually. Therefore, every race where there's a big favorite, I almost always try to take a shot against. And in here, it's nothing clever, but had to find something. And I think because of the good field size, if I play exactas and triples, we could make a little races run in the way that me and Jack think it could be run up on the lead, and it's not too fast.
Yeah. You have to respect Swiss Skydiver, but
you obviously have to give her the respect. And if she was running in the Ashland, then maybe it would be a story with me picking her. But it's just definitely, I will say, I'm definitely going to be rooting for her. If I lose to her in this race, I will be very happy for not only just for my friend. Looks like we're buffering again.
We're buffering again. Crap.
Oh, never mind. We just came back.
Jesus.
We're back.
Remind me to complain. If anybody's watching, please remember for me, tell me to go call out OBS, because I never had problems with PlayStation the way me and Sammy used to do these things. So, I don't know what the hell it is about OBS. I have very good internet. There's no...
Well, I would be very happy to see her win. It was hard. It was really hard for me to go with her. from a professional perspective.
Yeah.
Oh, come
Okay.
on.
Well, that pretty much does it for. What
No,
happened?
we're good now. We're good. No, it
Did
was.
you want to mention the Monomer girl workout race?
Oh, I'm getting into that. I was gonna say we're just about finishing
Are you gonna
up.
take a shot against a favorite again? Are you taking a shot?
No, not in that race.
I'm not either.
No,
Monomer girl.
I want to talk
is one of
about
my
a few
favorite
things
horses
at
in training.
Belmont tomorrow. In the first race,
Speed.
oh, definitely speed if the rain keeps coming. We caught a little bit of a break here. I can't believe they actually raced through a tropical storm today. That was kind of funny. In the first race, I like Rudy's second timer. I know you almost always see me pick first time starters, but to be honest, when there's a bunch of firsters and there's a couple of horses with experience, I'll tend to look at the ones with experience. Ooh. And maybe Rudy's
My buddy's on the horse too.
Can break well. Horse's name is She's a Dirty Dancer.
With Romero.
Yes, Romero Mirage. He won today, right?
Yep, he did.
In the fourth, I'll be surprised if Jesus Christ. Monomoy Girl loses. I think that field just came up super weak. In the sixth race, if the race stays on the turf, I want Rudy again with the 6. Women Not Easy with Raylu. Speed, going a mile and a 16th on the inner, is just completely deadly. And then in the 9th race, I want to box the 2 Clement horses with Charlie Baker's horse. They are the 3 morning line. But just like in the Bluegrass, it's a pretty big field, so the triple could pay if it comes in a good way. They're 3 shorties. But Clement's been a little bit cold lately, but I still think that his 2 horses are the class of the race, and Cheyenne BC's a pretty good horse, too. So that's how, just a few plays for Belmont, because to be honest, we just previewed Keeneland. I'm not going to be watching Keeneland. I'm going to be watching my track. You know that I hardly ever watch anything out of town because I'm invested making picks at Belmont every day. So those are my quick ideas that jumped off the page tomorrow. Obviously, me and Sammy will have picks for every race, but those are the things that I'm keying in on tomorrow. It's a pretty good card, and the weather's going to have a lot to do with it. Whether we get that much more rain here and if the courses dry out at all, as we had to take them all off today. Did you guys have anything you wanted to say for Belmont, or are you just interested in Keeneland?
Monomoy Girl's going to win.
Yeah, I'll make the Monomoy Girl point. Like I said this, like, and this is only half jokingly. She could fall on her face on the start, dump the jockey. Florent Giroux could take his time getting back in the saddle, and they could still win the race. That's how much better Monomoy Girl is than any of the other horses in this race. And it's not like that it's her and there's a really good horse to look at underneath. I did a very short preview for this race in the Delaware Handicap over on my YouTube channel. Both of those were very chalky races to spoil that whole thing. It was really hard. It was impossible to find any value in the Ruffian. I looked at it for about a half hour for both of these shows that I did. It was impossible. Mother, a lot of people are going to pick her because of the name with Bob Baffert for second. She hasn't run well recently. The 2 horses that were dual entered at Delaware, Vexatious and Always Shopping, actually did show up, so that made the race a little bit more pleasant. But it's going to be Monomoy Girl beating 4 horses by 10-plus lengths as opposed to Monomoy Girl beating 2 horses by 10-plus lengths. You're not going to be able to tell anything about Monomoy out of this race. The debate is going to be had, and rightfully so. Who is the better horse, her or Midnight Bisou? I'm not going to get into that conversation at any point. I always say let everything be decided on the racetrack. When those 2 horses run against each other, we can have that discussion. But as far as it is with her, no way she loses this race. Even if she breaks worse than any horse you can come up with from any big grade 1 where a horse broke terribly, she could break as worse as you could come up with and she'd still win.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. How about Midnight Bisou and Monomoy Girl? It doesn't look like it's going to happen, but they teamed up in a personal instant. That would be nice to see.
The one thing I would say about McGraw this week is if she wins this race. I know how much I love Mono McGraw. She's the first horse who I really started to follow when I got it to horse racing a couple years back. Yeah, if she wins, I'm not saying she's back. I would have to see her beat maybe, I don't know, even if she beats she's a Julie or something, or Sergent Empress. But who's she really gonna have to beat in this race?
Even if she can run a 115, even if she can run a 115 tomorrow, she's not gonna, because she's gonna get geared down.
Oh yeah, they're not gonna let her show anything because they don't need to.
This might look like Seattle Slew training up to the Kentucky Derby, where Jean Cruguet just held the reins back as closely as possible and didn't let him do anything more than he needed to do. And she might still win by 8 or 10, even if she gets.
And in all honesty, in all honesty, it doesn't really make any sense to let her do it here, because this is no offense to Belmont Park and the Ruffian, but in the grand scheme of things, this is a Grade 2 race at Belmont Park when their aspirations are Breeders' Cup Championship, Eclipse Award, and very possibly the dreams would be Horse of the Year. How practical that is, it remains to be seen. But those are obviously the goals, and winning the Ruffian is not winning the Ruffian by 30 lengths, and then running a couple of iffy races after that is not going to do anything for Monomoy Girl in terms of those kind of goals. So there's really no reason to even reasonably think that she would do that. Even though
just another step.
In the short term it would make, yeah,
just step along the way.
It was like the Fleur de Lis was with Midnight Bisou. That race was a paid workout. This will be a paid workout. I'll briefly, if we can call a little audible here, just to talk quickly about the Delaware Handicap. I'll throw that same thing out there with Dunbar Road. All three of these races, for the most part, are paid workouts. Dunbar Road may have to work a little bit harder than Midnight Bisou does, because Dunbar Road will have to break to win the Delaware Handicap. Midnight Bisou doesn't have to break. But all in all, you look at these three horses, you can find a little bit more value in the Del Cap, but two paid workouts this weekend on the East Coast, the Delaware Handicap and the Ruffian.
Yeah, I think that look elsewhere on the Belmont card if you care about value. I will say one thing. If she loses, the pick 5 payoffs and the early pick 4 payoffs are going to be astronomical, because 95% of I was going to say 95% of the building, but there's nobody there, as much as I would want to be there, is going to single this horse on their tickets.
Well, you can say 100% of the building, because all the people at NYRA will be picking her. So everyone that's there will
yeah. On their NYRA bets accounts, not at the window though. That's why I want to go to Monmouth. I want to have tickets in my hand. I want to be hitting the screen, or I want to be going up to the window and telling them what I want. I want to be at the racetrack again. And thank God next Friday that's finally going to happen.
Well, maybe you can go there next Friday, get a Benjamin, and then go on Haskell Saturday.
Yeah, I'm going to make a Benjamin. I'm going to get there early and bet Saratoga. That's what I'm going to do. And then I'll just maybe watch the Monmouth races for fun, just to watch a horse race in person. I don't know the connections down there that well. I want to bet the connections that I know.
Chad Brown might have a horse there.
Oh, Chad frickin' Brown. Chad Brown had the first winner I ever had, named Guilt Trip. I told my dad that was the first day I ever really was betting, and I was giving him money. September 26, 2012, Guilt Trip won the 7th race at Belmont. I was standing on the rail right at the finish line. It was one of the happiest moments of my life. And I just started to love Chad Brown. I started picking Chad Brown, and he kept winning with longer prices, and then the odds just kept going down and down and down. And if you get a Chad Brown horse now that's over 10-1, the horse is going to run up the track. Unless he has 2 first-time starters in a race, in which case you play the longer one over the shorter one. It's like Wesley Ward in the first race today at Belmont. That was the easiest freaking exacta in the history of mankind, that the longer price was going to beat the shorter price. That was the easiest thing. How did
Well, the
everybody
5
not have
was
that?
better.
Yeah,
5 was
the
better
5
horse.
was better, but come on, that was just a joke. I can't believe that
I
horse
ride
went
one
off
at
at 4 to
I
1.
ride one at 11-1 today.
Some of the
I ride
things
one for
these
Leslie
guys get
Ward at
away with
11-1.
is just ridiculous. To see Chad run one to the long way, see Wesley Ward do. I've seen actually Wesley Ward do it more than Chad. I saw him do it in my first trip to Saratoga in 11 years, a few years ago, 2 years ago, in the Bolted Landing Stakes. I forget their freaking names, but he ran an 8 to 1 over 4 to 1. It's all about the money, and if they can get the longer price to win, they always will. Always, always will. I realize there's different owners, but the trainers, they know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Anything else from either of you? This has been an absolute
I
pleasure.
think
That's
that
about
pretty
it
much
I have for-
covers everything, all the big
That's
races.
about it
this
I
week.
have for. That's about it I have for this week, and I don't think there's anything else happening anywhere else in the country. And if there's a listed race somewhere in the Midwest, no offense to those tracks, but not really too focused on it with everything that's going on.
Yeah, and look, like I told you guys, you're probably laughing at me that I do not even plan to watch Keeneland tomorrow just because I have 2 days left at my favorite racetrack, and I'm going to enjoy both of those days. There's no doubt about it. And hopefully the next time it opens, I'll be there. Come on,
I don't
Cuomo.
fault you for. I don't fault you for that at all. But it remains to be seen whether or not we get there. I want to get there so we can get my staff down there, but see if I can get some actual work done down there. But who knows?
Look, I'm praying just as much as you. I just want to sit on the 3rd floor with a Coke in my hand, watching Talking Horses, and going up to Andy and Anthony after they do Talking Horses, and talk to them. I want to see all the regulars up there, and I want to hear the roar of the Jamaicans down the stretch. That's why I love Belmont. All the Jamaican guys that are at Belmont and Aqueduct, they're just so funny. They're so loud. It's great. Especially on a Wednesday when there's hardly anybody there. It's still loud because their screams echo through the building. If you've never been to Belmont on a Wednesday or a Thursday, a real quiet day when there's hardly anybody there, do it. It's a wonderful experience, and I've never lost on a Wednesday at Belmont going there. Ever. Still haven't. So hopefully good stuff like that continues. But I digress. Jack, Sammy, thank you so very much. This stream went a lot longer than it should have. We ran into some technical difficulties. We blabbed, but we had fun, and we hope you guys did too. We really appreciate you watching. We hope you take some good stuff from this, and we wish you the best of luck with Keeneland tomorrow. We wish you the best of luck with Belmont tomorrow, and any other track you might be playing. And of course, remember, pay your bills first. And enjoy this awesome weekend of racing. I don't know when the next stream will be. I plan to do it right before I go on vacation. Do Whitney weekend up at Saratoga. I'm going to take a few weeks off. I do have some plans the next couple weeks. Couple of very small trips, including one to Monmouth where I'll get to see Sammy again for the first time in 2 years. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Take care, and we'll see you in a few weeks for Saratoga's Whitney and more.